Are low interest rates impacting on your investment returns? It's time to rethink. Rethink Investing creates wealth for clients through the strategic purchase of positively geared, high cash flow commercial property. Industrial properties, retail assets, or office spaces can be a smart investment option that produces significant and long-term return on investment. Rethink your investment options and look to commercial property. Learn more at rethinkinvesting.com.au. Rethink Investing, Australia's #1 commercial buyers agency.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
Okay, everyone, how are you going? Thanks for joining us on the podcast today as we navigate property investment, and property investors come in all shapes and sizes. I'm very fortunate I get to knock around this space and chat with a whole bunch of people right across the ecosystem, whether it's new investors, old investors, intermediate investors, large property portfolio investors, or small property investors, Queensland, Northern Territory, all over this great and vast land that we all inhabit. This is what I do. This is what I get a real kick out of, is navigating these conversations with people who are all looking, by and large, to create wealth through property investment. I don't meet many investors who choose to invest in property purely for the love of it. Most of them actually want to get some outcome of it, and that generally helps steer and lead the conversations that I have on a Smart Property Investment Show. For many people, investing in property starts with the purchase of their first PPOR, or principal place of residence. How a lot of people get into property, they buy a home, they live in it for a while, and when they're ready to trade up into something better or newer or closer to the city or on the water, they keep their investment property. And it's a strategy that has served many property investors well. Whether or not this is going to be the strategy of today's investor who's here in the studio, he's a colleague of mine. He runs the second best podcast in Australia, the Lawyers Weekly Show.
Soon to be the first best.
Jerome Doraisamy. How you going, Jerome? You well?
Yeah, I'm well. Thanks, Phil. Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your day job before we go in it, because I talk about what people do for a living and how that sort of is an enabler for them to be a property investor. So you're a colleague of mine at Momentum Media. You've worked within our platform for the legal sector for probably, it's got to be nearing 3 years.
It is nearing, 2 years, 8 months, I believe.
2 years, 8 months. So that is a good thing. That allows you to put money in your back pocket, which you've decided to save up, I imagine, in some way, and you're about to settle on your first home.
I am, yeah. So, been working with you 2 years, 8 months, the longest relationship I've ever had.
Really? How's it going? Is it all right?
Yeah. No, we're having a great time.
We haven't fallen out yet, so that's
right.
why we're doing this podcast.
Well, exactly.
To be a test of the relationship.
We'll see how we go after this conversation.
By the way, just as a footnote, Jerome does the Lawyers Weekly Show, which is for the legal industry or legal sector, and he's nipping at my heels. We're very competitive here in terms of who gets the most listens. So what you should do right now, stop what you're doing, go to on your phone or wherever you're listening to it, review the Smart Property Investment Show, say it's the best show at Momentum Media. 5 stars is what I need, so I've got to keep ahead of the curve. But Jerome, sorry, I digress. 2 years, 8 months, and during that time you've been saving the whole time? Yeah,
I have. So coming into my time at Momentum Media, I was working for myself for 3 years, traveling the country doing lectures and workshops for law firms, universities, high schools about wellness in the workplace and on campus, how to look after yourself, and going paycheck to paycheck. I wasn't really able to save anything or put anything into super. So came to the age of 30 and had an existential crisis of sorts and realized I needed to be saving more money, and quite fortuitous timing, was able to come on board with Momentum Media and join the Lawyers Weekly team, where I still am as I near the age of 33. And it's sort of been a little bit of a game of catch up for me in the so-called rat race of life and trying to get ahead. And so, I have been working diligently to save up in that time. And as you said at the top, have just recently been able to purchase my first home, a lovely little one-bedder in Alexandria in inner city Sydney. But I should note that I've also had the benefit of some parental assistance in being able to secure that property. And, but for that parental assistance, probably wouldn't have been able to make the purchase as soon as I have. So I'm very grateful, very fortunate, very privileged for that. But nonetheless, it's a hugely exciting time, and really looking forward to, this next chapter of life.
That's cool. So our listeners really get a kick out of talking about the asset itself and the who, the why, the how, the where. And we'll get into that towards the back end of the podcast, Jerome. But parental assistance is good, and we'll have a chat about that. And the thing is that you got to come on a Smart Property Investment Show. I'm going to strip you bare, right? So,
Go for it.
What's really funny is that most people think it's rude to talk about money, right? There is this, and if this is you and you've got this mindset, and a lot of it is generational. I think, I'm sort of 10 years on you, right? So we're similar generation, but different. You'd be a Gen Y,
yes,
and I'll be a Gen Xer. and my parents are baby boomers, and your parents probably nearly baby boomers, I imagine, or thereabouts.
They're on the cusp, yeah.
So there's this attitude around it's rude to talk about money. Now, the Smart Property Investment Show, what we do is we talk about money in a good way, and it's a good thing. So you need to get comfortable having a positive attitude towards money and wealth creation. How have you sort of shaped your views over time? What's your relationship like with money?
Oh, look, I don't have any issues talking about it in that sense. For two reasons. With this particular property, if somebody wants to know how much I paid for it, they can just Google it and it'll be right there on the first link you click. But secondly, I think it's important, to have more open, honest conversations about it, because I think, the more transparency we have in talking about money in any context, the more we're going to be able to achieve equality across the board, and be able to highlight any issues that might exist, better address certain trends that might be, I suppose, leading to adverse outcomes. So yeah, I have no problem chatting about it and happy to field any questions you have on that front.
That's good. And how do you sort of connect with your peer group around discussion money? I know you work within our very capable content team here, and you guys talk about money all the time. I don't know if you talk personally about what you do and stuff, but you talk outwardly about your reporting on big deals, right? Money is part of your bread and butter, but within, I guess, your professional sort of colleagues, but then also outside of work, do you talk money with them? Is that like a topic of conversation?
Yeah, it is. Well, certainly with people close to me, I don't think there's any reason why that should be a taboo subject. I mean, people talk about sex, religion, culture, politics. What's wrong with talking about money? Certainly, as with anything, there's got to be some social etiquette and knowing when you're being intrusive and when you're not. But like I said, I think it's important that we have these open, honest conversations. And, the more we can understand about money, the more we can understand how much we can and should be paying for certain things, such as, a first home. The better off we're all going to be, then we're all going to be more educated about, what's a reasonable price for a home and what's not. And yeah, look, I've been fortunate to have some good conversations with my colleagues here at Momentum about, how much I, can expect to pay for X, Y, Z. Certainly with some of the little minor incidental house purchases, a couple of the colleagues have been really helpful in steering me in the right direction. And, because this is something I haven't done before. This is my first home. And so I don't know how much I'm supposed to pay for a fridge, for example. But having a couple of chats with some people here, I understand, okay, well, that should be my upper limit for this item. And it's only been to my benefit to have those open conversations.
Do you think you're good with money?
I think I could be better, but I'm certainly not terrible. I have learned a lot of lessons, and some bad lessons along the way, since I entered the professional market, about how to save and how not to be reckless with your spending. I've certainly never been appalling at it, but I could probably be doing better. And in terms of what I was saying earlier with the rat race, I think it's, really important for me to, sort of stay on the straight and narrow a little bit and understand that, if I can invest some money here or there, then I'm going to be better placed. But yeah, like I said, it's a learning curve and I'm still learning. Yeah,
which is a good way to see the world, and I'm always learning. And one of the things I get out of every podcast I do is that I learn something which I think is of value and sort of help shape my opinions or perceptions towards something. And, when you talk about money or think about money, and I know you're quite happy chatting philosophically, and a lot of people outsource the blame for ineffective management of money to other people, or lack of education, or somehow out of their sphere of influence, and therefore they don't have that skill set. Money management can be learned, and anyone can learn it. How did you sort of educate yourself around money? Is there any sort of tips you've got for our audiences?
No question is too stupid to ask, is what I've learned. And there's a lot of things I don't know about money, and and I'm a long way off knowing the answers to a lot of those things. But perhaps by virtue of my personal background and how my parents brought me up, and just general life lessons along the way, I've learned that anyone will be happy to answer a question for you if you just ask it. And so when it came to engaging a mortgage broker and then getting the right loans from the bank, speaking to the conveyancer, all of the necessary steps in purchasing a home, I just asked as many, quote unquote, stupid questions as I possibly could, because I just didn't get it. I didn't understand all these terms they were throwing around. A lot of them I still don't understand. But the more you can have those conversations, the more you could get them to break it down for you and, give it to you in simplistic terms, the better off you're going to be. And that's really helped me. I don't have any shame about asking questions and revealing how little I know about a subject because, as you alluded to before, you've just got to keep learning and growing. And, it's the only way you're going to get ahead in life. It's certainly the only way you're going to be able to succeed.
Yeah, and people like us who do what we do for a living, and I guess, what are we? We're podcasters, we're broadcasters, we're all these things. But essentially our trade, in inverted commas, is that we are journalists, and journalists are naturally curious people. So questioning and question asking is just part of our craft and our trade, right? So we do it organically and innately. But a lot of people struggle with it, right? They're scared to ask questions.
Well, then you've also got to think of it as a duty, both to yourself, but also then, to the bank if you've got a loan, to your parents if they've helped you out. But ultimately, as I said, a duty to yourself to get the best deal that you possibly can, but also to put yourself in the best possible position to thrive moving forward.
We're going to go to a quick break, Jerome. When we come back, I want to sort of get a bit of insight into the mechanics of how you've saved and how your parents sort of help pony up some of this deposit. We'll be back in a moment.
Whether you're an avid property investor or about to buy your first property, why do it alone when you could partner with Australia's best buyer's agent? Director of Pure Property Investment, Property Investment Professionals of Australia board member and REB Buyer's Agent of the Year, Paul Glossop, can take your portfolio to the next level. Get in touch today to discuss your investment goals. Get one-on-one insight from Paul Glossop. And for the first 100 people, this service is completely free. Head to purepropertyinvestment.com today to schedule your consult with Paul Glossop directly.
Welcome back, everyone. Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show with Property Investor. First-time investor? Oh, there's a question for you, Jerome. Do you see yourself as a property investor or a homeowner?
Oh, I would say homeowner for now.
Yes.
Not that I'm opposed to the idea of being an investor. It certainly makes me sound smarter. But I don't know. I suppose I'm taking it one step at a time at the moment.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've had a mortgage. And so it's going to be important for me in the coming months to really wrap my head around, these new fiscal responsibilities that I have and ensure that I'm, capable of managing those responsibilities. But, once that time passes, and certainly once the market is able to stabilize a little bit and we're able to navigate out of the pandemic, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't set my sights on a broader portfolio if that is indeed something that I want to do. Yeah,
and that's a journey that you go down. But the point being, I think, is the best investors I know goes back to having an understanding of what they're doing, and the argument of, is every single person that owns property as an asset class an investor, or are you only a property investor once you invest for the purpose of generating income? Where does that lie? And most Australians carry the majority of their wealth through the increasing capital value of their properties. That's how most people have money at retirement, or they realise at a point in time. How do you think you can sort of shift your mindset towards an investor mindset faster than just being a owner-occupier? And what owner-occupiers do, or homeowners do, they sit there thinking about, I'll paint that wall or put some carpet down there or make that look really nice, and I'll get some soft furnishings and cushions and stuff to make them more homely. But when are you going to start saying, but now I'm going to do that on the basis of trying to create some more value, because at a point in time, this might become an investment property?
Well, I suppose that would then require me to do the research for it, read as much as I possibly can about property investment and really understand some of the marketplace trends that, but for listening to a podcast like this, I just wouldn't be aware of. And, so obviously I have the benefit of working here and having access to all the content that's produced by the Smart Property Investment team, for example. It's just important for me to put my head down and, really grasp some of these issues, challenges, opportunities that I otherwise wouldn't have access to. And that's something I'm willing to do. It could well be that I'll read an article about, this is a current hotspot in Sydney, and I'll decide, oh, actually, no, that's not for me. But if I didn't even know that that was an option, then, I'm just limiting myself. So, yeah, doing the research, doing the work is, at least from my perspective, seems to be the best way forward.
So tell me about how you got together this chunk of money that become your deposit. Now, you're a Gen Y-er. That means you're a millennial, right? Which is probably a badge of honour for some, and
sure,
maybe for others, but we'll get into that later. Most millennials I know go, property's unaffordable, and I've given up on the idea of ever owning a property, whether it's a home to live in or it's as a property investor. It is just impossible to get together enough money to get a loan as a deposit, because I've got to pay for rent. I've got to buy 10 cappuccinos a day, avocado on toast, the great analogy, Bernard Salt. All the reasons why they can't make any money, right? So how did you get this deposit together? How did you save? Did you have a percentage per your monthly salary to put away to try and, save for a rainy day, whatever that is? Tell us about that.
Well, initially I wasn't saving for that specific purpose. It was more saving to have savings, which I didn't have when I started in this role just over 2.5 years ago. But did come to a point about 18 months ago where I realized this was a possibility, and certainly through conversations with my parents, they made a very generous offer to support me in this venture. I did start to put away money for that specific purpose as opposed to just those regular savings. But look, I should be quite transparent about this. My parents have contributed the majority of this deposit, which again, hugely grateful for. But in response to what you're talking about with millennials, I think it's also important for us to recognize just how much prices have skyrocketed in the last 30 years. My parents are very fond of telling me that the first place they bought in Australia when they moved over from the UK, there was a 2-bedroom apartment in Linfield in Sydney's Upper North Shore, which they got for $80,000. Whereas I've just paid $680,000 for a 1-bedder myself in Alexandria. And salaries have not increased proportionately to how house prices have gone up. And so we do have to acknowledge that it is more difficult right now. And so for a lot of people, but for parental assistance, but for dual income with one's partner, it can be incredibly difficult. And so I'm privileged to have been able to have that support.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this thinking that you'd hope that your parents sort of pony up a few bucks to help you out, there are many ways that this can actually happen. And in many ways, they can do it in a structural way, and that is being a guarantor on your mortgage. Therefore, they're essentially underwriting your ability to repay the debt if you don't have the serviceability. That's one way they can do it. They can gift you some money. They can even pull equity out of their own house and give it to you, all this sort of stuff. So your best bet is to speak to a mortgage broker to look at what those different things are, or go to smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. We write about it all the time. In terms of the parental support that you've had, is it come with any sort of caveat, or is there any conditions around it? Is it like here you go, here's your start, go away and do whatever you're going to do with it? Or is it like, you got to pay us back over time, or whatever?
I think technically with the bank, it's termed as a loan, but it is in essence a gift from my parents to me. And they're doing the same thing for my siblings for when they reach a certain age as well. So that will essentially form, the inheritance that the three of us receive from our parents, which is, again, hugely generous. But when it comes to the expectations moving forward from that gift towards each of our house purchases, the expectation is you're on your own now. If you are struggling to pay your mortgage this month, that is your problem. And I think that's important that I be able to shoulder that responsibility and not have to fall back. Because if I'm to be a true adult, so to speak, if I'm to be able to grow as a person, it's really important that I be able to bear the brunt of such consequences if and when that ever happens. And I think having that sort of sink or swim mentality will be hugely beneficial when it comes to looking to expand the property portfolio if and when that's something I want to do.
It can be a really good gift, and it's just not a gift that's, a singular gift. It's a gift that can keep giving, in that, that first foray into property investment, if you get it right, it can be a huge enabler to manufacture equity. That's equity they can use for other purposes. So, in principle, the gifting of money to a sibling or a son or a daughter or whatever it might be, it's irrespective of whether it comes from grandparents or whatever. I don't mind it. I actually, I've got young daughters, Jerome, and, I put $100 away a week for each of them. It just goes into a bank account, and that'll be like, all right, there you go. Now, if they hit 21 or 22 or whatever, if they go to university or not, whatever it is, if they go, I just want to go and get pissed for 2 years traveling the world, go ahead, do whatever you want with it. If you actually want to use that to get into the property market, well, I'd probably encourage that, but not all of it. Go away and do what you got to do. But that is a gift if you get the right guidance and you use that money well. It can just leverage you into property after property or whatever other way you want to build out your asset classes. We'll get into the asset that you bought specifically, but when you chose where you were going to live or buy a property, was the base of those decisions on this money is going to be more effective with this particular property because it's going to go or grow in value faster, versus I like this place over here because it's closer to cafes and this, that and the other, and it probably won't grow at all or slower, therefore stopping you from investing again in the future?
I suppose a little bit of both for me. I'm hugely motivated by the idea that I've bought into a suburb that, at least anecdotally, appears to be one that is trending upwards in Sydney. A lot of people I've spoken to said in Alexandria, where I bought, say, 3 to 5 years from now, is going to be really hustling and bustling, and will be a really good place for investors. And so that certainly influenced my thinking relative to looking in suburbs that are perhaps better established. But I was also very much influenced by being close to cafes, as you alluded to. The idea of having some culture around me. Certainly, a young people's vibe was really important to me because I do plan to live in this property. Yeah, so ultimately it's both. It's a first property, so I'm not sure if it's one I'll hang on to forever or if I'll just use it as the first rung on the ladder and then I'll upgrade, say 5 years from now. But on a personal and social level, it was also really important for me to tick other boxes. And so being able to strike the right balance, I think, was a good motivator for me. I'm not sure if I have struck exactly the right balance, but it seems it's sitting well with me right now.
But you know what? It largely doesn't matter. It's okay to say, I bought this property because it ticks all these boxes, which are not necessarily around whether or not it's going to go up and grow in value immediately. And I think this is a really important point for all property investors. Buying a home to live in is very different to buying an investment property. You buy a home to live in for largely emotional, personal, social reasons. You invest in property specifically to make money out of it, whether it's to go up in value or to generate a yield. So it's a very, very important component. And if you're going down the pathway of buying a first home to live in, you've got to do it on the basis you're going to live in it rather than, but then I might turn into an investment property. Now, it's okay to have that consideration moving forward as part of your decision-making process, but you don't beat yourself up if you go, I really like the cafes and the bars and the blah, 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 whatever. I can get to work easy, whatever that's all okay. It's cool. Hence the reason why you're buying a home to live in. But that's a hot tip. It's often hard to get both right. People do it all the time and they go, I bought this place here on the beach somewhere or other because we want an investment property, but we also want a place to holiday in. Most people get it wrong. They never go on the holiday and it's not a very good investment, right? So you've got to make sure you get balance to it. Now, getting into the finance side quickly, Jerome, we'll go to a break beforehand. We'll be back in a moment.
Are low interest rates impacting on your investment returns? It's time to rethink. Rethink Investing creates wealth for clients through the strategic purchase of positively geared, high cash flow commercial property. Industrial properties, retail assets, or office spaces can be a smart investment option that produces significant and long-term return on investment. Rethink your investment options and look to commercial property. Learn more at rethinkinvesting.com.au. Rethink Investing, Australia's #1 commercial buyers agency.
Welcome back, everyone. Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show with new property investor, homeowner / property investor. We've got to work that out still. Yeah. Jerome, mortgages. So you used a mortgage broker?
I did, yes.
Good. Why?
Because the financial advisor told me I should.
Okay.
And so he recommended somebody who he works with quite often. And because I've used the same financial advisor for years, the one that my parents had, and I now engage him as well, I was willing to take that recommendation. And, going back to what we were talking about before, I just didn't know anything about this entire process, so, going from A to B when it comes to buying a property. So if there was an expert who could guide me on that, then of course I was going to take that.
How'd you find the mortgage broker? Good?
Yeah, hugely personable, would always respond to an email within 5 minutes, even if it was a Saturday. And just on an emotional level, made me feel a lot more secure and safe about the whole process. He had no problem answering my stupid questions, things that, as a 32-year-old, I really should have perhaps been more cluey on. But, I think that just really aided the whole process for me in feeling comfortable about moving forward for, a $500,000 mortgage, which is no small thing for anyone. And so having somebody to guide you through that and really be able to explain the XYZ was hugely important to me, feeling comfortable and, as I said, safe and secure about this whole thing. And so for anyone who is looking to buy a property and they're unsure if they're going to engage a mortgage broker or not, I would suggest absolutely do it.
Okay, it's good. Phoebe, I concur. I think mortgage broker is brilliant. I've used a mortgage broker for every loan I've ever got, so I don't think I'd be a property investor. I didn't use a mortgage broker, but that's for another time. Now let's chat about product really quickly. What did you end up? What sort of interest rate? What sort of product is it? Is it something that principal and interest only? Is it fixed? Is it variable? Tell us about that.
I have a split of fixed and variable. So, and I'll have to double check these numbers, but I believe, so my loan is 535,000. 400 of that is fixed, 135 is variable. And the fixed rate, it's low twos, certainly, whether it's 2.3 or 2.4, I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
But, we've been quite fortunate in that sense. And again, talking about the benefits of having a mortgage broker, was able to get me a much better rate than, I otherwise would have been able to negotiate myself with the bank. So, yeah, and maybe this is also by virtue of COVID, being able to get a better rate. But yeah, seems to have worked out really well for me, the timing of it.
And your strategy with the mortgage, is it to, obviously the fixed part is going to be the same every single month. The variable part will change based on how that variable interest rate changes up or down or indifferent. So any money that you have surplus to your interest repayments, is your plan to drive that into the principal component of the loan, or are you going to try and do an offset or anything like that?
Yeah, so I've had the benefit of learning about offset accounts in the last few weeks, ever since exchanged contracts with the vendor of my property, and having had conversations with the mortgage broker, with my financial advisor, and then subsequently with my parents, realized that it's going to be important for me to pull all of my money into this offset account in order to reduce the variable repayments as much as I possibly can. So I'm in the process of consolidating right now. Every account I have, minus superannuation, of course, is going straight into this offset account. And obviously, it's not as simplistic as this, but my understanding of the offset account is that the more money I have in there, the less I'm going to have to repay in the long run. And so that's good enough for me.
Absolutely. And it's exactly, that's how simple it is. And to make the numbers easier, if you've got $400,000 of your mortgage is fixed, it's going to be the same amount every single month. In a variable part, say it's $100,000, that's going to be pegged to the interest rate. If you have $100,000 in your offset account, it means you'll pay nothing each month on that variable component. So it's a really smart strategy. And what it is, it's a real enabler. It'll change your behaviors and attitudes towards, for every dollar you stick into that offset, you're saving money on interest. So, do I really need that thing there, or do I need to buy a $20 sandwich or whatever? You jam in, and you'll see the effect. You jam in this money into the offset, and you'll see the savings. So you're getting the double utility of your money, right? You're saving something for tomorrow, and you're also getting the benefits of not having to pay interest on it.
But it's also a matter of realizing that some of your other accounts will then become redundant. So one thing that I have to do is have my employer, being yourself, redirect salary into this account, the offset account, rather than the existing account where it's currently going. So I'll shut down that account, but have everything else going into and coming out of that account, because it's just going to make it a lot easier to ensure that the balance of that offset account is as high as it possibly can be.
Yeah, and this is just good, sound money management, and it's not that hard. It really is that simple. Now, you probably got to do some paperwork or something or other to get your bank account changed, but for 5 minutes of pain to speak to the account section of a company to get that done, that means your salary goes directly into that. So as soon as that hits the bank account, you're saving money, and you either choose to spend out of that, or you keep all the money in there. You can use some other, a credit card, for example, and you could just, if you pay your credit card off every single month, it is a huge enabler for saving money and getting you faster to what the next step might be in property investing. And, how long do you think you will sort of be happy? There's obviously going to be life changes and all this sort of stuff, and some things are out of control and you don't know what's over the horizon. But how long do you think this one better will suit your needs as an owner-occupier before you might start thinking about another thing? So that's more of an emotional thing. Plus, coupled with that and running in parallel is, how hard are you really going to save to try and leverage yourself into the next property?
Well, there's a few things to respond to there. Firstly, in terms of how long I plan to be there, my rough plan at the moment is, say, 3 to 5 years. That's dependent, of course, on life circumstances. And if I suddenly have a partner and want to move in with that person, then maybe that timeline will be sped up. If I suddenly have children or a child and a one-bedder is not suitable to house a family, then that might speed up the process as well. So I'm, in that sense, would be somewhat playing it by ear. On the presumption that it's just me who's in there, then 3 to 5 years is the current plan at the moment, and then looking to amass as much in savings as I possibly can in order to put myself in the best possible position to either upgrade that single property or to be able to locate a second one sometime in the next few years. There's lots of options to consider, of course, but to an extent, I'm trying to take it one day at a time. This first home purchase has been a big deal for me. It has taken quite an emotional toll in terms of how exhausting it is and how overwhelming it can be getting your first home. And so to an extent, I do want to just sit back and appreciate this one for what it is and pat myself on the back for that accomplishment.
You should do. It's a huge milestone to get your first property. Like it's a big milestone, and it can be quite a stressful because it's new, right? Like it's good to step outside your comfort zone, and do stuff new. But no, it's really exciting. It's good to see you to do that and give it a go. Do you think now that you're a homeowner, or just about, when do you get the keys? Like
Friday week, so 9 days away.
9 days away. So when you are really a homeowner, do you think this will compromise your current lifestyle, the fact that you are a homeowner? Are you going to do things differently now? Are you going to go out less? Are you going to maybe drive some shitbox car? Are you going to, or whatever, right? Like, is it going to change things?
Well, I'm already doing that one. Well, I think that any changes that might arise can only be for the better. If you're a more responsible adult and, more conscious of what needs to be done in order to, survive and thrive day to day, financially and in other ways, then the better off you're going to be. And so, if that means I don't go out, partying one night, or if I can avoid spending, $30 on a pub meal as opposed to just having a $5 sandwich, then I think those are all, positive, sensible choices. And, the more I can force myself to do those, I don't know, the more I'll be able to move forward on a personal, professional, and certainly fiscal level.
It's cool. Now, I said we'd chat about the asset itself. So you said it was $685,000, and your mortgage is $535,000. Okay. All right. So the deposit was 20%, correct?
Correct.
Yes. 20% deposit. So you didn't have to pay lender's mortgage insurance, which is a good thing. That's LMI. That's where you insure. If you've got over 80% lend, you got to insure the lender that you're a good borrower. Anyway, so where is it? Alexandria?
Yes.
Okay. And for those who aren't familiar with Alexandria, if you're in the Sydney CBD and you drive towards the airport on the Eastern Distributor, Alexandria is on the right-hand side. Okay. Is it a new place? Is it an existing place? What colour is it? Is it brick? Is it something else? Has it got lifts and pools, or is it, what is it?
So the building is, I believe, 12 years old.
Okay.
So it's a relatively new complex in a nice quiet street of Alexandria, near a big park, which I'm very pleased about because then I can go watch the grade cricket on the weekend, just sit down there in the sunshine. The building does have a lift, which is nice. No pool, unfortunately, but that's all right because it keeps the strata costs down, although having the lift will bring it up a bit. But that's all right. It's all pros and cons. And there's not too many apartments in the complex. I'm unit number 23, and I believe there's 26 units all up. So it's a nice kind of small community in that sense, which I'm quite looking forward to. I'm hoping that there's a good community vibe in there, as opposed to a complex that's got 100 units and, you never meet anybody.
Are you going to look to get onto the body corporate committee and play your role and be an advocate and agitator?
Yeah, well,
maybe
I'll agitate when needed.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to roll up your sleeves and get involved in that kind of stuff. And, if you want the best for your property and for the complex that you live in, then, sitting back and doing nothing isn't going to change anything. So, look, I'll investigate that when I move in. If a position comes up, I reckon I'll put my hand up for it.
Okay, that's cool. Well, you learn a lot by doing it, right?
That's
really
right.
Good experience. Yeah. I've done it before. I've sat on there. I found it quite tiresome personally.
Yeah. Well, look, my...
Fighting over what color, a letterbox should be, sort of thing, right?
Bureaucracy for the sake of it sometimes. Yes. But look, this is all part of the learning experience, which I'm still obviously going through, and I'm learning new terms every day, for this purchase and with the loan, and that's a good thing. I want to learn what I don't know, and I don't know a lot.
So you said park down the road, cafes and that sort of stuff. Is there anything? It's a lot of apartments in Alexandria. So was there anything specific about this particular apartment that you went, I like that over this one, that one, that one?
Yeah, so I started looking close to 12 months ago, and then I took 3 months off earlier this year when COVID hit, and I didn't want to drag my parents to open homes for safety reasons. And so in the year that I've been looking, essentially, I've probably seen about 150 properties across Sydney.
You've looked at 150 properties?
I have, yeah. Really went for the brute force approach. And as with anyone looking to buy a property, of investor or homeowner, you learn very quickly what you like and don't like. What are your non-negotiables? What are the things you're willing to compromise on? And so I had a certain list of things in my head that I really wanted to tick off. And if you tick enough of those boxes, then it's a property that you want to go for. So with this property, it's a split level apartment, one bedder, floor to ceiling windows, so lots of natural light, 600 meters walk to the train station, so easy to get to work every day, right next to the park, as I said earlier, near the gym. I've got a lot of friends who live in the vicinity of inner Western Sydney, in the sort of inner city area. But I've also never spent that much time in that part of Sydney. I've grown up on the lower North Shore, and I still live on the lower North Shore in Lavender Bay, as you've seen me a couple of times on the way to work.
That's right.
And so on a personal level, I feel it's quite important for me to spread the wings a little bit and, get out of the bubble, so to speak. So the suburb of Alexandria, the apartment itself ticked enough boxes for me after seeing 150 places that I thought, this one is good, I'm going to go for it. But,
soul destroying, look at 150
Oh,
properties.
yeah, and look at,
part of your education, and obviously you needed that level of research to give you the confidence to make decisions, and that's
of course
that's okay, right? There's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, of course, and look, there was a bit of heartbreak along the way. Did lose 2 auctions, and then
how many places did you go for? Did you put an offer in on of the 150?
4 all up,
4 of them, and 2 also went to auction.
2 went to auction, and I got outbid. The other 2 sold to other people in private treaty. And I think that's important as well. That's an important experience to lose out on a property, because it's character building, and you realize to what extent you should get emotionally invested in a property and when you should have your blinkers on about it. But it also made the eventual purchase that much sweeter, because I knew what it felt like to lose one.
Yeah.
It's kind of like being dumped in a way. So
do you reckon, I'll close with this question, do you reckon that the property that you've ended up with is better than any of the properties you put an offer in or lost at auction?
It depends what you mean by better, but in terms of the 150 that I looked at, it is easily in the top 3 in terms of its aesthetic and how I felt when I walked in. So in that sense, I'm very happy walking away with this one and feel as though I've won, yes.
All right. Well, Jerome, congratulations. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you, Phil.
We'll have to get you back on the show when you're ready to start investing again, or, you blow all your dough and you get repossessed, mate. But I don't think that'll happen. I know you. I'm sure you'll be a very diligent mortgage holder.
Well, you wouldn't employ me if I wasn't diligent. But look, next time we speak, I'll certainly will have learned a lot more. And that, as I said, can only be a good thing.
Yeah, nice. And I hope you enjoy that, everyone. These are the chats I really enjoy having on the Smart Property Investment Show. They're very organic. And if you want to come and have a chat with us on the show, I encourage you to reach out and get in touch with the team editor at smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. And as you know, it doesn't matter whether you've got 1,000 properties and one of the biggest property investors in town, or you're just starting on your journey and it happens to be your home, your principal place of residence. Everyone can learn something from everyone's journey through property, and it's my job to share and ensure that you're a more informed investor and hopefully making more informed investment decisions. So that's what we do on Smart Property Investment. If you like what we're doing, as I mentioned beforehand, I got to keep the competition alive with Jerome here. I love those 5-star reviews, but it's just not me. I get the easy part of this job, sitting behind a microphone doing what I love. There's a real talented team of broadcast professionals here who get a real kick out of the fact that their hard work is changing the way that you're doing what you're doing. So if you can leave a review for us, I'd really appreciate it. And they are read and they are valued. So thank you very much for that. Smart Property Investment, social media, Smart Property HQ is where you'll find us. smartpropertyinvestment.com.au/subscribe is where you can ensure that you're first with everything that's going on every single day in property investment right across this great nation. We'll be back again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Whether you're an avid property investor or about to buy your first property, why do it alone when you could partner with Australia's best buyer's agent? Director of Pure Property Investment, Property Investment Professionals of Australia board member and REB Buyer's Agent of the Year, Paul Glossop, can take your portfolio to the next level. Get in touch today to discuss your investment goals. Get one-on-one insight from Paul Glossop. And for the first 100 people, this service is completely free. Head to purepropertyinvestment.com today to schedule your consult with Paul Glossop directly.